working on my 2009 Chevy Cobalt, and I'm going to be working on the brakes, upgrading the brakes with a new rotor, caliper bracket, and the current miles are 319,503 miles. First thing I'm going to do is pop the wheels. Next thing I'm going to do is loosen up the brake line banjo bolt. This takes 11 millimeter. I just want to loosen it because it can be a little bit hard to do once the caliper is disconnected. And I'm going to remove the caliper next, which takes a 14 millimeter. So you will have to bleed the brakes after you replace the caliper. And there's a pretty simple way to do it if you're only by yourself and you don't have the proper tool. Alright, try to lose as little brake fluid as possible so you don't have to bleed them too crazy. Of course, I'll torque that down to factory spec. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is remove the caliper bracket, which takes a 15 millimeter. Alright, remove the two 15 millimeters and pull the whole assembly out. So I'll put it on backwards first. Now flip it over and do the front side. Use a lug nut to hold the rotor in the correct spot. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is push the piston in on the new caliper I'm installing. Okay, now I'm installing the bolts back in here. You want to make sure there's free movement. Alright, so now I'm going to bleed the brakes with just by myself. And what you do, you get a piece of hose, you drill a hole in a bottle cap, fill this bottle about that far full of brake fluid, and this car uses .3, and then you just pump the brakes to get all the air out. So you get the nice clean bottle, you pour some of the brake fluid in there. Right about there is perfect. Put the lid on. Then we'll set this aside over near the new brake caliper. And you never want your brake reservoir to go empty, otherwise you're going to have to start this whole process over again. Alright, crack loose the bleeder valve. Torque this down to factory spec. Put the cap back on. So first thing I'm going to do after jacking the car up and putting a jack stand underneath it is zip the wheel off. Next, I'm going to take off the brake caliper and I'm going to disconnect or loosen up the banjo bolt on the back just to make it easier to get off when I have the caliper removed. Next, and that takes a 11 millimeter. Yeah, the banjo bolt takes a 11 millimeter, and the brake caliper takes a 14 millimeter. Actually, I think I'm going to disconnect this all the way and hook up the new one, just so I don't lose a bunch of brake fluid, which will make it easier to bleed. It'll make it easier to bleed the system if I hook this up now. Ooh, it already has the washer on that side. It takes a crush washer. It takes a crush washer on both the inner and outer part of the brake hose. All right, now that I've secured that, that should stop the leak. And usually I rest the caliper on the shock. Next, I'm going to remove the old caliper, and that takes a 14 millimeter. Alright, remove the old brake caliper. And this is the original brake caliper from when I bought the car brand new. And this car has 319,000 miles on it. And it still works fine, but since I'm upgrading the rotors, I thought I might as well replace them. Alright, the bracket takes a 15 millimeter. set that aside. So first thing I'm going to do is put this on. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is put this on backwards so I can spray it off. Get all the grease off the backside with a little brake cleaner. Flip it over that way, and then use a bolt to secure it so it's flat. Spray off all the fingerprints. Always make sure the pins still easily move, and they do. Brake pads still look like they're in great shape. Remove the bleeder cap. Alright, so alright, what you want to do is once you have the bottle here, you want to make sure it's a nice tight fit. Next, you want to top off the brake booster. Make sure everything's connected nice and tight. And pump the brakes. So, right after you top off your brake reservoir, pump the brakes a handful of times, and everything feels nice and secure. So I'm going to make sure everything's nice and tight. Give everything a thorough spray and a brake clean. Alright, remove the lug nut that was holding the rotor straight.